I came across a wild prediction. Someone said that XRP could be one of the greatest financial opportunities of our lifetime. Not just ours, our kids, and maybe even their kids might thank us for it. Sounds crazy, right? Well, with how volatile XRP's been lately, I had to find out if this is visionary insight or maybe just pure hopium. A couple of weeks ago, XRP's price plunged to about $1.20 during a market-wide crash. Now, as an XRP holder, that drop kind of felt like a gut punch. Now, I remember staring at the charts thinking, here we go again. Like, it has bounced back since then, of course, but trust me here, right? The vibes were pretty rough. To make things worse, an analyst actually revealed that whales dumped over 140 million XRP in the aftermath. That's a whole lot of coins hitting the sell button, right? So here I am sitting here just kind of wondering to myself, what do the big players know that maybe we don't? Are we all just missing something? Or are the whales just taking profits and moving on? Then I see this commentary from a community figure known as Unknown DLT. He basically says XRP will be one of the greatest investment opportunities of our lifetime, and even for generations to come. Now, hold on, generations to come? That's a pretty bold statement, right? Especially when at least some of these whales, seem to be, running for the exits. Now, it kind of felt like a total contradiction. Whales are selling on one side and hardcore believers are doubling down on the other. So I decided to dig in and see what's really going on. I have to admit, I was skeptical at first. In crypto, we hear some grand claims all of the time. This coin is going to the moon. That token over there will change the world. You kind of know the drill. So when someone says XRP might be the opportunity, not just of our lifetime, but for several lifetimes, I naturally raise a bit of an eyebrow, right? But I also kind of felt a twinge of excitement. Could there actually be a real substance behind this claim? Now, the XRP community has been through a bit of a roller coaster, right? Some days it feels like being an XRP holder, or at least feels like being an XR holder, should come with a stress ball, a free one on the side, seriously, right? So hearing a positive rally cry from Unknown DLT was a bit of a breath of fresh air to a degree. It made me wonder, what does he see that maybe others don't? Is there actually something big brewing under the surface here? And I set out to find the answers, almost like a detective on a case. First, I looked at the context. Unknown DLT's optimism isn't coming out of nowhere. In fact, his sentiment echoes what a lot of XRP diehards have been saying, right? That the market just doesn't get XRP yet. They argue XRP's current price doesn't reflect its real potential. And what is that potential? Well, it boils down to real-world utility. Unlike some coins that are all hype and no substance, XRP actually has a use case that's happening right now: cross-border payments. Now, that's a fancy way of just saying that you're able to move money across the globe quickly and cheaply. Now, I found out that companies like Tranglo and SBI Holdings are already using XRP to handle international transfers. Why? Well, it's because XRP can settle a payment in seconds for a tiny fee, which blows traditional methods out of the water. Now, if you've ever sent a bank wire or used something like Western Union, then you know that it's slow and costs an arm and a leg. Now, XRP is basically the opposite of that. It's like sending an email, but instead of an email, you're actually sending money. And it arrives the moments, for peanuts in fees. It's a pretty big deal. And get this, Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO of Ripple, is beating the drum on XRP's importance. He literally called XRP the heartbeat of Ripple's strategy. So let's just think about that image then, the heartbeat, right? It means without XRP, Ripple's whole mission would flatline. Right? Ripple's mission, by the way, is building an internet of value, basically a world where value, like money, moves as freely as information does now on the internet. So if XRP is the heartbeat of that vision, it's core to potentially transforming how money works on a global scale. At this point, I'm nodding along. Real companies using XRP, the CEO doubling down on it. These aren't just random fanboy comments. This is tangible stuff. But I still wondered, if XRP is so great, then why isn't the price reflecting that? Why did we just see a big drop? Why are the whales cashing out? Right, there had to be more to the story. That is when I dug into Unknown DLT's deeper argument. He basically said, forget about the short-term price charts, technical analysis, TA. It doesn't dictate XRP's future. I found that rather interesting because so many traders live and die by the charts. And hey, I use charts too for timing. Nothing wrong with that, right? But his point is that XRP's true value lies in its role in global finance, something that you can't see just by looking at a graph. And it's kind of like judging a book maybe by its first chapter. You're missing the whole story. Let me put it this way. Imagine trying to measure the value of the internet back in the 90s by looking at how many people used email in 1995. You would probably undervalue it quite massively. But you couldn't yet see Amazon, YouTube, or this very platform where we're having this conversation, right? Now, in the same sense, if a new financial system is emerging, one that could last decades, how do you value a key piece of that system right now? Now, Unknown DLT hinted that a new financial system, one that could last 70 years or more, is on the horizon, and XRP might have a significant role in it. Now, 70 years, I don't know about you, but I don't usually plan my investments on a scale of multiple decades, let alone beyond my lifetime. It's also a philosophical kind of perspective. Maybe the real impact of what XRP is building, won't fully be realized until future generations. So when I heard that, something clicked. It sounds almost crazy to think that far ahead, but it also is kind of humbling, like, wow, I might be a part of something that outlives me. Now, it made me picture those stories of people who bought a few shares of some company in the 1940s that became huge in the 2000s. Maybe XRP could be like that, something that our grandkids look back on and go, wow, glad grandpa or grandma actually held on to those XRP. Now, before I go too far into the dreamland here, let's also ground ourselves with, at least for a second, because we've got to talk about the risks and the reality. Now, this might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies, they are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Alright, so that's the disclaimer done, but I mean every single word of it. Now, let's get back to the story. Where were we? Yes, the big picture versus the short term. Now, on one hand, you have whales and some traders who are kind of fixated on the next week's move or the next quarter, right? They see XRP pump a little bit, they take some profit, and honestly, no one ever went broke taking profit, as they say. But on the other hand, you have people like Unknown DLT and a whole lot of everyday XRP holders, myself included, who are in this more for the longer term. And it's almost like a battle of timelines, short-term thinkers versus long-term believers. This got me thinking of a metaphor. XRP is kind of like the tortoise in a race full of hares. Now, we all know that story, the slow and the steady tortoise versus the fast, flashy hare. Now, a lot of cryptos are like the hares. They skyrocket today and then they crash tomorrow. XRP, meanwhile, has been moving steadily, sometimes slowly, building real partnerships and technology in the background. Now, the progress isn't always visible in the price action, but it is happening. And maybe, just maybe, the tortoise wins the race in the end. Another image did pop into my head. XRP is kind of Rocky Balboa of crypto. You know, the boxer who can take a beating and get knocked down, but just keeps on fighting with an eye on the championship. Now, XRP's been knocked down by bad news, lawsuits, market crashes, you name it. But it is still here, still swinging, and arguably getting stronger where it matters, in the fundamentals. Now, speaking of that, remember the lawsuit, right, saga with the SEC? Well, that was a heavyweight round that XRP went through, right? It lasted for years and kept a lid on XRP's price because a lot of exchanges didn't want to touch it. But XRP came out of the other side with a landmark court ruling, and that kind of gave it some regulatory clarity. Now, it won't bore, at least I won't bore you with all of that right now, but the key takeaway is this. One more barrier potentially out of the way for wider adoption. It's like another piece of the puzzle just falling into place. Now, let's talk about the numbers too here for a second. Now, I'm not going to go and throw some crazy price targets at you, but let's also consider, how things could unfold, right? If more financial institutions start using XRP for settlements, say banks using it to move money across borders in seconds, well, that could be a bit of a game changer. Now, we already have a few on board, and analysts expect more will come. Every additional bank or payment company that uses XRP isn't just another news headline. It's potentially a new source of demand for the token. And basic economics says that if demand goes up and supply stays the same or even shrinks, or in XRP's case here, even decreases as it's leaving those exchanges, well, the price tends to rise. Now, it might not happen overnight, and there will be bumps along the way, but it's still logical long-term trend. However, adoption, it does take time. Just because something is clearly better, like XRP being faster and cheaper, doesn't necessarily mean that the whole world changes in a single day. Think about electric cars. They're great in many ways, but it took years for them to catch on, and they're still catching on today. Financial systems are even more conservative. Banks move like elephants, slow and cautious. But once a new technology proves itself and enough people trust it, the shift can happen seemingly all at once. Now, I wonder if one day we'll wake up to a flurry of announcements, a bit like a domino effect. One big bank uses XRP, then another, and then suddenly it's standard. It's a possibility that keeps me holding on to my XRP stash, even when the price is sleepy or dipping. Let's address something though. What if the whales know something that we don't? The question was nagging at me. Why would whales sell if XRP's future is so bright? Right? Sometimes the answer is as simple as they want to take profits after a decent run-up. Now, whales are not, married to their backs, right? One whale might be cashing out to buy a yacht, while another whale might quietly, perhaps be a quieter one, could actually be accumulating some XRP because they believe in the longer term story. They're not all the same. In fact, often when some whales sell, other investors, even other whales, are on the other side buying those coins up. So whale behavior can be a little bit deceiving if you look at just one side of it. I also check on what the community sentiment is like outside of Twitter. Now I hop into our free educational Discord server, shameless plug of course, there is a link in the description if you're interested, and I see what the fellow XRP enthusiasts are saying. It's interesting. I see a mix of caution and, of course, optimism. Some people are like me, they see the news, updates, and about XRP's adoption and feel validated in holding it longer term. Others are a bit more cautious, saying, hey, that sounds great, but show me the price at $10 first. Now, both perspectives are pretty healthy, and I do love that in our Discord, we share research and healthy debates and skepticism. Right? It keeps all of us kind of grounded, because while I am bullish here, I never want to wear, blinders. Now, here's something that I do want to share and is not directly about XRP's tech, but about strategy as a crypto investor. It's something that I do personally that gives me peace of mind. Now, with all of the talk of future growth, imagine if one day XRP does explode in value. The last thing that you're going to want is to be stuck, unable to actually access your funds, right? What if a certain exchange, it goes down at the wrong time? It happens, trust me. Now, that is why I spend my activity, or spread my activity, I should say, across multiple different exchanges. Basically, I've signed up and KYC'd on a whole bunch of them. Right? I have plan A, B, and C. And if exchange A has some issues, I can just jump over to exchange B or C. For example, I use things like Blowfin and BitGet. Of course, affiliate links are in the description. We'll talk more about that in a moment. And BitGet is another one that I use with TradingView and so forth. Now, these are part of my kind of plan A and B, if you will. In fact, all of the exchanges that I personally use are listed on my website, linked in the description down below if you are curious. Now, this approach of signing up and KYCing and testing out exchanges, it has saved my skin more than once with one exchange that had kind of withdrawal freezes. Now, I just hopped over to another exchange when it was and I was ready to go, right? It's kind of like having multiple exit doors in that theater. You hope that you never need them, but it's nice to know that they're all there. Plus, different exchanges offer something different coins, different features, maybe different sign-up bonuses depending on your jurisdiction and where you live. So like I said, head over to the website, and all of those links, they're affiliate links, which, actually support the channel here at no extra cost to yourself. But those are the exchanges that I personally use and have trust in them. All right, let's get back to XRP's journey. After taking in all of this information, the community optimism, the real-world adoption, the hints that we might be on the ground floor of something that lasts decades, I find myself feeling cautiously excited. Emphasis on cautiously, though. Look, I'm not going to guarantee that XRP will make us all millionaires or change the world financial order overnight. No one can. But I also feel like writing it off just because it hasn't yet hit everyone's wildest price targets would also be a pretty big mistake. Now, if I've learned one thing about crypto, and of course life, is that patience can pay off. But only if you've done your own research and truly do believe in what it is that you are holding. Now, I want to reflect on how this whole saga changed my perspective. Right, when I first saw the headline, XRP will be one of the greatest opportunities of our lifetime, I honestly thought it was a bit hyperbole, Now, after investigating it, I can see at least where that sentiment is coming from. XRP's story is still being written. There are chapters ahead that could really be exciting, like mainstream banks using it, or maybe even XRP being part of central bank digital currency infrastructure. Who really knows? And yes, there could be some rough chapters too, perhaps new competitors emerging, or unforeseen hurdles that we'll have to deal with. What I do know is that I'm not bored with XRP anymore. Sometimes holding it kind of felt like watching paint dry compared to the craziness of meme coins or whatever else was popping off that week. But now I remind myself, there's a reason that I got into XRP in the first place. It wasn't for a quick flip. Okay, maybe a tiny part of me had hoped that it would have overnight riches. I am only human after all. The bigger reason was that I actually believed in the problem that it's trying to solve. The cross-border payments problem is pretty huge, and if XRP even captures a slice of that market, then it could be absolutely enormous. Now, as we wrap up this deep dive today, or I should say journey, here is my takeaway, right? Don't let short-term noise drown out the long-term vision. Whether or not XRP truly becomes the investment of a lifetime, the key is to zoom out and see the bigger picture. Sometimes you have to squint to see it, but it is there. And for XRP, the picture I'm seeing is one where it's deeply woven into the fabric of moving money around the world. And that doesn't guarantee a $100 price tag or whatever moon target people are dreaming of. But it does mean that it has a fighting chance to be around and to be relevant for a long time. In a world where new cryptos come and go like trendy sneakers, XRP is looking more and more like a classic pair of shoes. Maybe not the flashiest, but able to stand the test of time. And that, quality, in my opinion, gives it a shot at living up to at least some of the hype. So, will XRP really be the greatest opportunity of our lifetime? Well, honestly, only time will tell. But you know what? I'm not here to make that promise. But I will say this, I'm hanging on to my XRP. I'm paying attention to the developments, and I'm staying prepared for whatever happens. Whether it's to the moon, the mud, or somewhere in between. If you found this little adventure insightful or at least thought-provoking, then I'd love you to stick around for the next one. So hit that like button and the subscribe button and join me in the next video. I'll catch you there.